Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Mathghamhain Morsels and the start of a new series, Comfort Foods Simple. So, for Comfort Foods Simple, I've explained this on one of the Minions of the Zoo stream, but the idea is that it's things that I grew up on that are really easy to make. They're either something that you can make ahead of time and then pull out, reheat, or just let it slow cook for a day. Or there's something that is just really simple to throw together quickly. So due to that, there's going to be a lot of cheats in how these dishes are made. This first one is going to be chili chips and cheese, which of course has three ingredients: chili, chips, and cheese. Other people also know this as Frito pie. So, what I've already done off camera is I took a couple cans of Hormel chili without beans. You can use whatever your preferred brand of canned chili is. And I don't like beans in this. Some people like beans. If you like beans, get one with beans. If you don't like beans, get one without beans. If you aren't sure, try it this way. See how you like it. So, I grabbed a couple cans of this, and I already threw them into a sauce pot, let them heat up, get up to temperature, just so that they're easier to work with. When it's in the can, it's kind of congealed and a bit off-putting, and I want it to be able to be poured when I actually start building this up. So, going to pull the can of chili off the desk. Then, the chips, I'll show you guys how these are used in a few moments. You want a corn chip. The ones that I grew up using for this and grew up having were always Fritos. So, I got a nice big bag of Fritos corn chips. Again, if you have a preferred brand, go for it. See if it works. This is just the one that I grew up with and the one that I've always used. And then the cheese. So for the cheese, I always go for a sharp or very sharp cheddar. And this can vary from brand. So sometimes I get a Cracker Barrel sharp cheddar or very sharp cheddar. Sometimes I get a different type. So this one is a Tillamook sharp cheddar, and it is fantastic. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to slice up some of this cheese, and this is a medium cheese. So you have soft cheeses, you have hard cheeses, and then you have medium cheeses. Different types of cheeses require different knives. So a soft cheese, you'll often, rather than using a knife, just use a wire, because it doesn't have the cheese stick to it quite as much. For a hard cheese, you'll use a plain shaver, or I have a really good hard cheese cleaver, which is just this nice little cleaver. So those are good for hard cheeses. Like I said, you can shave a hard cheese, you can use a plane, a microplane, a grater, whatever type of grating block you want to use on hard cheeses works really well. Medium cheeses, you kind of want to get a knife like this. So it is a lot more substantial than a cheese wire that you'd use for a soft cheese, but it has all these holes in it which allow the cheese to release. So as you cut up the cheese, it'll just kind of come off the knife without sticking to it. Otherwise, if you have a knife that doesn't have the holes, you'll always get a little bit of stick, but it just comes off real easy. If you have a knife without the holes and you try to slice cheese, oftentimes you'll have to kind of fight it in order to get it off the actual knife. So, get a good cheese knife. And like I said, if it's a proper knife with a lot of holes in it, it is most likely meant for medium cheeses, because medium cheeses are solid enough that you want some heft to the knife. You want a little bit of body to it. But they are soft enough that if you have too much material and you don't have these little air holes, then the soft cheese will just stick horrendously. So, a good example is you don't want to use this type of knife for brie. Brie is a very soft cheese, and it will just stick horrendously. So just keep on slicing your cheese. You want it somewhat thin. You don't really have to be consistent. In fact, I rather like when it's a bit inconsistent, because then you get cheesier bites. But you want to just go through and slice up the cheese. It's okay if it comes out without a nice, clean-looking cut like this. I've had a bunch of them, as you guys have seen, that aren't nice and clean. But just keep on working through the cheese block, because this is going to make one of the layers of our chili chips and cheese. So keep on working through. You can do thin, you can do thick. I'll slice up some more of this here in a moment, but I have enough to show you what the general idea behind chili chips and cheese is. So, you want to get something to bake it in. I just have a Pyrex bit of glass bakeware. And the way that this goes is very simple. I have my chili here, so pour in some chili, let it coat the entire bottom. Don't want it dripping all over the place. So, coat the bottom of your chosen baking vessel. Then, get your chips and throw your chips in. And you want a nice layer of chips, so kind of knock them around, make sure that they don't just bunch up in one location. You want to get a nice consistent layer. You'll still see some of the chili through the cracks, unless you really layer on the chips. But that is not a problem. You just want to get a good layer. You don't want to see chili everywhere, but some gaps, not a problem. And I think one more small handful will be good. So, get your layer of chips down, and then comes the best layer, by far, in my opinion, the cheese. And this, you want a nice, consistent layer. This is the layer that I don't really want to see anything beneath it. I want it to just be its own little barrier. So I'm going to need to cut more cheese here, but that's enough for one good layer of cheese. And then, chili chips and cheese. You start the stack again. So you pour more chili in. And once it looks like you've coated that entire level of cheese with chili, let me me just pour on the last bit of this. That'll be enough. Again, don't want it dripping everywhere. And also, like I've told you with everything else, taste everything. Now, it'll just be more chips. Another nice layer of this. Again, don't worry about covering everything. It's really hard to cover everything due to the shape of the chips. I won't escape. So, throw your chips on. You won't get a perfect layer, but that looks good. Just kind of balance them around. It looks like some layers, some areas have more chips than others. Let me throw on the last bits of cheese that I've already cut. And cut a few more slices. To toss on top of this, because you want a nice top layer, just like that middle layer where you wanted to cover everything with this cheese. You want to cover everything again. Because for me, that top layer with the really crispy Fritos from after the bake that we're going to do, and all that ooey gooey cheese melted down on top, that's hands down the best layer of chili chips and cheese. The middle's good, but top layer all the way. And I've been really tempted to make thin things of chili chips and cheese just to get the top layer, but it always works better when you have a nice deep bit of chili chips and cheese. You get different textures, you get the crispiness of the top layer, that middle layer, that first layer of chips kind of gets a bit almost soggy, but it's delicious because it absorbs the flavor of that chili. And tastes fantastic. So just kind of patching up my cheese layer a little bit, making sure that I got almost everything covered. And this last bit should be good. Okay. And then, just to add a little bit of extra crunch, so just a small number of your corn chips on top, your Fritos or your preferred type. That'll add just a nice little bit of crunch. Then this will just be put directly into a 350 degree oven, which I've already preheated, and I'll show you guys what it looks like when it comes out. See you guys then. Okay, and here we are back again. This is fresh from the oven, just given a few moments to cool down, just enough so it's not burning hot when I go to take a bite. So as you can see, the cheese is melted beautifully. Those corn chips on top crisped up just a little bit. And let me get a good cross section of this. Good wedge cut out. So this is one of those things that it doesn't matter how you do it, how long you have been making this, you'll never get a pretty cut out of it. It will always just kind of fall apart. But that's kind of part of the attraction of it. It just kind of oozes everywhere. And this, it's not healthy. It's not a refined meal that you serve up to guests in order to impress them. This is just something that you make for family, you make for yourself. Sinfully delicious and just plain meal that is made in maybe a half hour, a little bit more depending on how your oven works, if it's giving you an accurate temperature and how long it takes before the cheese is melted the way that you like it and gets just the right amount of caramelization. But it is delicious, messy comfort food. And that's really what you want with something like this, isn't it? It's just something fantastic. Not pretty, not fancy, just simple and delicious. So, the chips that are towards the top maintain a nice bite and crunch to them, like this one. But the ones that were more in the center, because they were just completely surrounded by chili, they get kind of floppy. They don't look appealing, but they get the cheese and the chili flavors just blending all over them. And, oh, it's good. Well, there's not really much more to say about this dish, other than let me know what type of chili do you like using for this, because there's a bunch of different schools. As you guys saw, I used Hormel chili. Some people don't like using Hormel. They prefer Wolf brand or one of like 12 other different types. Everyone has their own favorite. So what's your favorite? Have you made chili chips and cheese before? Do you do something different than what I do? You can also do a travel version, which rather than letting the cheese melt down, you just kind of throw shredded cheese in a bag of Fritos with some chili and dig in with a fork. Still good. You don't get the melty, delicious cheese, and you don't get the different textures as much, because then you're just getting, oh, this is chili texture, and this is cheese texture, and this is the texture of the chip. Whereas this has crunchy chips, soft chips, kind of in between chips when you get one of the edge pieces. The melty cheese, fantastic. But let me know how you guys make it. Let me know if you do the same way. What brand you like. Do you get a different brand of corn chip? Do you do a different brand of chili? Do you do beans in your chili? Or, like me, do you do no beans? And if you haven't tried it before, give it a go. It's simple, it's cheap, it's filling. And this heats up beautifully the next day as well. So I'll leave you guys off with my normal beseech of try new things. Try different flavors. Try making a dish that you made before a different way. If you've always done without beans, try with beans. If you've always done with beans, try without beans. See what it's like. And just because something isn't new, just because it's really simple comfort food, doesn't mean that it isn't delicious. Have fun cooking. Enjoy your food. Have a good one, all.